How's it going, eh? My name is Ethan, and today I want to show you some of my Bitwig workflows that I have for working on game audio, specifically around exporting audio and sort of bouncing that out from Bitwig. Okay, so exporting in Bitwig. What is it that I'm doing? How am I, what am I talking about, right? So I'm in Bitwig. I have some clips here. I want these to be out of the DAW. I want to get them in a folder on my computer where I can grab them, share them, etc. I'm going to get them. I'm going to bounce them to a new track. Going to hit Control Z to remove the new tracks that it made. Going to open Windows PowerShell. Hit my up arrow because I just have this most recent, but it can be whatever the alias for this is. And I'm just going to hit double tap enter. And then I get a bunch of junk. Close that. And then now on my desktop, I actually have a bunch of files here. Wow. And these are the files that I just bounced from in here. And they're all named as you would expect, with the various namings that they had in the DAW. So let me go ahead and explain how Bitwig works first, and then explain what the tool does. So in Bitwig, they have a very nice rendering setup, despite the fact there's no good way to actually export the things, your renders. The rendering itself is actually quite good. So I can grab any clip here, and I can either bounce them in place or to a new track. If I bounce them in place, they'll skip all the effects on the track, and unless there's a MIDI instrument, in which case it will just take the output of that MIDI instrument and then skip the rest of the FX if you bounce it in place. When you bounce to a new track, it takes everything with it. You have options. You can choose where in the chain. You don't want things to be bounced for each different track that you have, and bit depth, and there's a pre-fader, pre-FX, etc. When I go ahead and bounce something, it's going to come out as 3 clips in the DAW, and this came out as 3 clips actually, right? This is very different from freezing, or in a lot of DAWs, how they do bouncing can be they try to do full track bounces and things like that, which can be really annoying. So that's really cool. It will use the name on the exported clip based off the clip name or the track name. So if the clip has an actual clip name that you've put in, it will use that name. And if it doesn't, it uses the track name. So in the case of this one right here, there actually is no clip name. And then down here, we actually have a clip name. So then they'll all get bounced here to this folder, which is really cool. And then you can also, of course, do a whole region like this, and it'll just bounce the region the exact same way. So if I was I actually want all these together, I can just do this, hit bounce, and then they'll come out as well. So what's happening here is that Bitwig will render the audio and place the clips that we get inside of a bounce folder, inside of that project, or in a temp file, temp folder in the case that we don't actually have a project yet. And then of course, once you save it, it will move everything over to where it needs to be. What we can do is then go find that bounce folder, because it's very predictable where it's going to be. And then we can grab the content that is there, check for things that have an export flag, and then move them out of the folder, apply any sort of renaming, or even rename them and then move them. Maybe we want to rename them, apply things like fades, normalization, any bonus, simple FX, and then go ahead and stick them into the actual folder that they belong into. This is no different than how most DAWs, even Reaper, would probably handle a lot of their audio setup. Reaper is probably applying, its brick wall, limiting its fades before the render. It's probably hooking into one of the tracks based off of where in the chain that you want it to start the render from and end the render from. It would write that to a buffer, and then it's probably going to save that file, rename the file in a temporary directory, and then actually move that file to where it needs to be and overwrite any existing files if you tell it to. So it's very similar in that sort of way. So boom, I have my project, I have my 7 flagged files here, and I've made sure that I only have my 7 flagged files, because if I accidentally bounce something a second time, then that's going to create an issue now where there are, oh no, now I have 4 variants of something, or these things are going to end up having the exact same name after they've been renamed, or my singular bass loop now technically has 2 variations to it because there was a second file. So just make sure you have the correct amount of files that you're going to have. Typically, when I actually come here and I do this bounce section, I am then always going to the terminal, and then I'm bouncing. I'm using the rest of the tool to finish the bounce process before I do anything else, or I'm just grabbing everything, deleting it, and then rebouncing it again if I'm unsure. It's not a big deal, right? So then I can come in here, run the tool. You can alias this. You can set that up in your profile, your bash RC, or whatever type of script that you're using, shell script. And then whatever type of terminal you're using, it doesn't matter because it's a Python tool. It doesn't matter what OS you're on. The only dependencies are NeoVim and FCF. So I do that, I run the tool, and then here's the FCF popping up, and it's like, hey, here's all your files, and I can fuzzy find through all my files, but it's going to be anyways sorted by the most recent project to the not so recent project. So I can anyways just click enter, because that's the last project I was working on. It's going to say, hey, select a folder, and we get the nice file dialog, sort of the file explorer dialog, not the file browser dialog that Reaper gives you. You can select the folder, and then you can say, you know, oh, would you like to configure the settings? And you can do that. Maybe in the file explorer, that previous step, you actually didn't really care about that. You just selected a random folder because you have some long directory path that you want to actually just come in and paste into here. And if you don't have NeoVim, it will just open like your default notes app, right? It'll open whatever your default text editor is for your system if you don't have NeoVim for whatever reason. So like, it's going to work no matter what. And then in here, we can see that we actually have our export directory, export prefix. Do we want to remove that prefix, right? A lot of the content that I end up making probably shares this like event name. So it would have like event underscore and then the rest of the name. So then I could do that. And then I could say, you know what? I don't want to remove it on bounce because I'm just going to actually utilize the natural file name of the content that I'm producing in this project. Then over here, we have post-processing. So right now, if post-processing was true, we would only be normalizing to 0 and fade in and fade outs would not be applied. The code will literally skip. It will skip normalization and fades if their numbers are a certain value so that you can toggle things on and off. So in the case that I wanted to apply a 500 millisecond fade, I could do that. And then I could come here, turn on post-processing. And if I don't want to normalize, I could make this number anything higher than 0, such as 1 would be a pretty good one. So now normalizing is off, fade in is off, fade out is on. Maybe I want to fade in of like 20 milliseconds. Maybe I want to normalize to a peak of -6 decibels, right? You can do that. You would then just save and then close like the notepad. And then the process will keep going and we'll keep doing the rest of the content. So here I'm just going to skip all those and it's going to go ahead and do all the bouncing anyways. And then all the files come out. They were cleaned of any of that dash bounce content that Bitwig sort of slaps onto the end here. Anything that Bitwig puts on there to denote files is all removed, which is great. And then the files, you know, would just go straight into like your engine. Maybe it goes straight into a folder in Unity. You just go into Unity, hit Control R. Files are updated, no problem. Easy. So let's look at some real life sort of cases where I'm working this. So here's like this sort of ball launcher sequence I have for this thing that comes down, does a shoot, and then it goes back up just for like a little fun like game. And it sounds like this. So anyways, I have these sort of set up here and I have the actual names that they have. So in this case, if I didn't care about the post-processing, I could come here and I could bounce it. But in this case, I actually have them and they're almost like layers. So what I do is I actually pull them off to the side like this for the rendering sequence. And then I go ahead and I change their names here like this. So I have the master track that has like no FX that's going to be doing anything. I have the master track and I'm putting down these empty clips that are roughly the length or exactly the length, or maybe they're longer, depends. And then when I bounce these, it will just take this clip and then take the next clip and the next clip. This is how I chose to break this up into layers. And then later on, we have a bunch of VO that I did. And here in the VO, there's like a multitude of things happening. So what I do is I apply like my fades and stuff like that. And then I actually have all these named exactly what they need to be because I'm only using this one track here. And then when I bounce these, they come out, they have a nice little volume fade at the end because they have delay and stuff and I want those to be cut off. So it would, you know, go through, play the sound, fade, and then before the next one starts, it would pop back in and do a thing. So then I can come through and I can just grab all of these and bounce them. And all I had to do is really add fades. What I could have done as well is I could have not bothered with the fade out here. I could have skipped this fade out part completely. And then I could have used the exporter tool and I could have told it to apply like a 500 millisecond fade out. And then I could have skipped, you know, this whole thing. Technically, I could have just not did this at all. Make sure things were sized the way I wanted them to. So I have a little bit of tail and then have the tool actually applied the fade out for me and save me, you know, maybe like 5 minutes or something. But at least this way you can kind of listen to it and then decide where the fade needs to be exactly for each situation. So that's kind of why I did it like that. So yeah, that is the entire tool that I've made here for Bitwig. It takes Bitwig from like being a pain to kind of export stuff with to just being like literally as fast, if not faster than something like Reaper as well, especially if you wanted to set up a lot of that script, you want to set up a bunch of calls to it using different commands, different features by just pressing buttons on a Steam Deck. That would be like really powerful too, right? Because then you could just come into your DAW, bounce your clips, then when they're done, press a button and it would automatically just grab the latest project, clear out the folder using the, you know, the settings, and then put it where they're supposed to go. And you would just press one button and it's just done like super fast, which is like awesome. Yeah. Thanks for watching. See you around.